Hi everybody. Thanks for tuning into this video. This video today is going to be about walking through a particular cinematic in Fallen Aces. I'll go through the steps on how I crafted the music for the cinematic and then where we are in the cinematic as well and what kind of is going on behind the scenes. I did want to let you know before we get started that there are spoilers in this. So if you have not beaten the second chapter of episode 1 of Fallen Aces, please stop the video immediately. If you have played that part and have beaten the game or have, gotten at least past that second chapter and seen the cinematic at the end, then feel free to keep watching. So I'm just going to get us kicked off right away and show you what we got going on the screen. So basically, we've got my cakewalk session up. This is the real session that I used for the game. I have the cutscene loaded down here by importing the video directly to Cakewalk. And also I have all of my instruments here. Now, I'm very bad about labeling, so this is probably the cleanest you'll ever see me label stuff. It just kind of gives me an idea of what patches I used and what libraries I've used. So like if I have the viola tremolo, I put BBC Symphony Orchestra viola tremolo. So just simple stuff like that. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on over here. Down here is where the video shows up, and I'm going to make that a little bigger so you can kind of see. It'll show everything once it gets going. So basically what I do with this scene, and just to kind of give you an idea, this scene is the final cinematic of chapter 2. It is the part where Mike meets Nightwave in person in the warehouse over by the docks, and it follows a car chase that ensues, and they blow up the goon car with the train and have some car trouble. So it's a pretty straightforward cue, but we do throw a few surprises musically at you that you wouldn't expect. So basically when Trey and I started, he usually sends me the video with no music whatsoever. He does send me one with temp score, so like he'll say this is kind of the music I'm feeling and the style that I'm looking for from other scores that he really enjoys. And so I will listen to it, but I won't. The part about being a composer is you don't want to like do the temp score to the T. You don't want to like just change the melody and some chords and it's pretty much the temp score. You don't want to do that. You kind of want to say, okay, this sounds ominous, this sounds dark. I need to make something that's ominous and dark. Not something that is, going to be lighthearted. That would be totally against what the temp track is trying to do. Another thing that I do is I try to quickly discard the temp track. Just because I listen to it once, that's it. I make my notes. And then I move on. I don't listen to that temp score anymore. And then I use the version of the video that Trey sends that has no music whatsoever, just the dialogue and the sound effects. Usually when it comes to me, the cinematic has little to no changes left. There have been instances where they change it, but they don't. And sometimes, very rarely, will I be asked to amend it a little bit. But usually, Andrew Holschulte does a really good job of taking snippets of things and making sure they get put in the right place as far as the video goes. So he's really good at mixing this whole thing. So props to him. Basically with what I do next after I get the videos is I look through the video with no sound whatsoever and I feel the tempo, because tempo is really important to get it to line up to the footage. And a lot of times you have to do some weird time signatures to get it to get things to line up, and we'll go over that in a bit more detail in a bit. So when I'm sitting here watching the video, I kind of tap either my desk or tap my foot to find out, or even snap my finger like that, just to kind of get an idea of tempo-wise how we can get that to work. So basically with this video, I'm going to tell you that I did at least 130. You can kind of see it up here on the screen. And we start with 130 beats per minute, which I will call BPM just for brevity's sake. And we quickly change time signatures. We do it for a few measures, for about 6 measures, and then at measure 7 we do 3/4 for about 5 measures. So just so I can get when the tempo changes, that way the slide changes, and so I can kind of get the music to coordinate to what's happening on screen. That's very important for cinematic scoring. So basically, with what we have to start, Trey and I had originally basically what we do when there's a major cinematic like this, he and I meet. We did for this one. And so Trey will say, I'm going to walk you through the story bits, and then if you have any questions, then we can address that. So usually my questions are, what is the player supposed to feel here? What are we trying to achieve on an emotional and psychological level? So how do our characters feel? What's going through their head that isn't necessarily on the script? So I ask these questions just basically because I want you, the player, to put yourself into that protagonist's shoes and to feel something organically sound to the scene. Not something I'm telling you to feel, but subconsciously we want to organically tell you, the player, kind of give you those vibes, suggestively. So in this case, Trey said, I want it to sound dark and ominous and mysterious because Mike isn't sure if Nightwave is a villain or if he's a hero or something in between. So we start the scene off with just a mysterious, ominous, ambiguously constructed opener because we didn't want to settle on a feeling. We wanted to give you a feeling of apprehension. And then when Nightwave turns and shoots the goon that's coming up behind Mike, that's when we had that brass hit. And that hit comes exactly when the bullet leaves the gun and shoots the guy, right? And then when Nightwave puts away his weapon and then puts the card up and throws it on the guy's body, that's where I do a little flourish with the harp, because the harp is giving you the motion it's going up because his hand is going up with the card, and then he throws it down. So that kind of walks us through the first part. But I'm gonna play it, and then we'll hit on each bit as we go along after that. So let's go ahead and do it.
We need to move. Follow me.
So, you care to fill me in on why these assholes are gunning for me? Or why my friend got strung up like a goddamn mistletoe?
You follow local politics much, Detective?
Funny papers count? What are you driving at?
Victor J. Waltz.
Buddy of mine might have had me working a case for him. What's it to you?
The mob didn't seem to appreciate you meddling in their affairs.
That why you're here? To be my bright-eyed guardian angel?
Something like that. I may have use of someone with your particular skills. Somebody is targeting ex-aces, eliminating them one by one. Waltz was on that list.
And now you are looking for Waltz before he gets clipped?
I was. Not anymore.
Shit. So much for my hazard bonus. So, where to?
Whatever got Victor and the others killed, I'm certain that we can find some answers at his estate.
pals are back.
Looks like we have a change of plans. Hold on.
Next time, I'm calling a cab.
Yo. It's a lot safer than taking the train.
All right, so that's the whole video there. So a lot of things with it. There's a lot of styles packed into it. We have the James Bond trumpets towards the end. We have the ominous sound of the first bit leading into the big hits of the car chase. And then we have the jazz breakout there with chaos. So there's a lot of stuff. When I had initially done this, I really had an idea of how I wanted it to sound, because I just... as soon as that car chase thing happened, I kind of was very sure about how I wanted that to sound, just by figuring it in my head for a while. To start, since we already talked about the opening, so as you can kind of see up here, and I'm going to try to drag my mouse up there if you can see it, but basically these little things here, each little indentation there on that is a beat, right? So if there's two between, like here between these, then that is the, that's 1, 2, 3 beats, right? So that's kind of how you can tell where I've changed time signatures. When you get about towards the end of the video, I'm changing them like every 8 measures, just because we want the hits to end up in the picture where the dialogue and everything is going towards. So just for you musicians out there, there's a lot of time signature changes in these cinematics. So anyways, when we get to the part where, Nightwave is talking to Mike in the alleyway here, the camera goes down, right? So that's why I want the sound chromatically to kind of go downwards. So the music's going down with the camera and centering on Mike and Nightwave. Then we get to the section where Nightwave is basically telling him, when he says Victor J. Waltz, right here. We have the oboe doing the melody of the image of you from the very beginning. So the opening cinematic where Waltz gets shot, that jazzy, uplifting, positive, happy-go-lucky song, right? I've warped it into something much more darker here. So I slowed it down so it goes da 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 da. So that kind of makes it a little bit creepy and ominous. So when he says Victor J. Waltz, we play that melody right there, because that's Waltz's theme. And so then we get over to where where he says that while you're here to be my guardian, my bright-eyed guardian angel. Then we play Mike's theme because Mike's talking, right? And so we reiterate Mike's theme there with the horn. And then we kind of go down chromatically again because things are winding down a little bit. And then we finally get to the part where he says, where Mike says, we need to get to Waltz before he gets clipped. And then Nightwave says, I was doing that, to that effect. And then when he says I was, then we just get rid of the music altogether and make it silence. and then we do like a roll of a drum, like a bass drum, a really low roll, kind of like distant thunder, like the storm that's about ready to hit us, right? Trey actually came up with that idea because I had other music there that was just low strings holding one note, and Trey said, let's just get rid of that part and just have the drum, a distant rumble. So that was actually his idea and input based on the feedback of what I had already written. And it was a really good change. And that's one thing I want to at least stress about anybody wanting to get into this field, is that you have to check your pride at the door. Like anything your client says, you have to be open-minded to. You have to be willing to just chuck out ideas, because your music lives and dies by your client, right? So I just, any feedback that Trey gives, I take it, and I make the changes that he wants. And then sometimes I'll be like, I think we could find a compromise, but a lot of times, like 9 out of 10 times, I'd say 9.5 out of 10 times, I'm just going to do what he says. So I think that's a good relationship to have with the project director, and any client you will have. You'll just be really good to work with. So when we get up to the part where they get in the car, right, and he says, so where to? We don't really have any music playing here. I thought as soon as he shifts the car into gear, that's when it's going to punch, right? When the car gets up and goes. And that's when the music, we bring it up to 140 tempo, and we do a quick 2-beat time signature there because I needed it to catch up and sync. So when we get there, we have that really dramatic da-da-da, da-da-da, and then we basically have it to where every measure where it goes da-da-da-da, it actually centers on a car zooming by underneath that bottom there, just to kind of give a musical sense of cars passing by, because it goes da-da-da-da, and then kind of fades out, right? Like a car. And then we get to about the part where he says our pals are back, and as soon as that car crests over the hill, that's when we start the jazz part. And admittedly, I'm going to tell you, I knew right away that was the section I wanted somewhere. I didn't know where it was going to go, but I got inspiration from John Williams from The Prisoner of Azkaban, the Harry Potter film. Specifically the part with the night bus. And if any of you have watched the movie, you'll know exactly where I'm talking about. It's just this chaotic mess of all these notes and everything kind of coming together in this cohesive whole, because it was a chaotic moment in the film. And so it taps into that surrealist idea of magic, and then this bus being able to squeeze through everything and go through stuff where a bus normally couldn't go, right? So obviously we don't have that same imagery here, but I liked the chaotic sound of that. So I thought, I want to do something that pays tribute to that, but also something completely unique to me. So I did this. I started with the bass line because I wasn't sure how to get my ideas from my head to actually be executed. So that's the problem with me being self-taught, is that if you go to school, you can literally use music theory, and it's easy for you, I think, easier, because then you can look at the analytical aspect of the theory and then know that these rules are true, so this must be able to happen. Me being self-taught and learning through experience with some theory, some things are easier, but in this case, when I have an idea in my head, sometimes it doesn't readily come apparent how to do it on sheet music. So in this case, I thought I had a decent idea in my head, and I was struggling for quite a few days on how to actually execute this properly. So it took a lot of trial and error. So what you hear is like hours and hours of me sitting here, beating my head up against the desk. Not really, but I was trying to come up with this idea. So basically what we did was I did this bass line first, because I'm like, we'll do the foundation, then we'll build it all the way up. But it's not how I do it all the time. every situation's different and calls for a different type of method to come up to tease the idea out of your mind, right? So in this case, I started with that bass. It goes dun 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 dun, you know, and then I had the trumpets and the piano then came in right after the bass. That, you know, the da da, and you know, it's on the offbeat, so we did the syncopation stuff with the jazz, and then so it kind of adds the uneasiness and the uncertainty of people shooting at you while you're driving down the road at high speeds, right? Anything could happen. So, and then we have the clarinet, the solo clarinet that just wails over, that goes digga-digga-digga-digga, digga-digga-digga-digga, you know, and kind of adding that fast, little short phrase that it does. And I used a straight ahead sample. It's called Clarinet on Rose. It's a really good library. It has like that George Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue type clarinet, and I just thought it was perfect because it really popped out of everything else that was going on. And then we have, you know, the drum set that goes ding 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 ding, you know, right with the bass. And then we have some wood blocks, and then we have a whistle in there, the trumpets that da 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 da, you know, and then right when they stop, the piano then plays its chord, and it just keeps chugging along until finally the other car catches up, and then we have just straight hammering in the brass, and so we get to that whole point where it's like da duh, and it's very dissonant in the low brass. So I wanted it to kind of get louder and louder as that car gets closer and closer and closer to Mike and Nightwave. And then the trumpets go just ascending a little bit key wise. It goes da 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 da. So that makes it, that ramps up the tension as things get closer and closer to a head until we finally release it, when the goons end up getting hit by the train and exploding. And then it's just like a pimple popping, like the pressure just comes out. And so then we get those James Bond trumpets again with straight ahead samples. Atomic Big Band, I love those samples because they're really good for things like this, where the trumpet goes da 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 and just wails. That ends that whole sequence. And as soon as I gave that jazz bit to Trey was like, this is sick as, you know, expletive there. So yeah, it really was a really fun cue to write. I love doing cinematics because that makes it more of a collaborative process between me and Trey. He gives me the direction, and then we just keep modeling this piece until it fits what his vision, what he envisions the game to do and be, right? It's just really awesome. I love doing these, and I'm pretty sure Trey likes doing the music aspect as well, because it's just something that he always discusses with me, these old scores, and we both like the same music, so it really makes it naturally comfortable for us to talk to each other about those things and collaborate. So some of my clients haven't been as, you know, comfortable to speak to, so it's really nice to have someone like Trey that really understands how music's supposed to work and how it's supposed to be implemented. So yeah, it's just really awesome. And then right after the car chase and after the goons explode into oblivion, we then have the car break down. And originally I did a Cowboy Bebop style, you know, piano kind of sound. If you've watched the show, you know what I mean, where it just goes da 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 da, you know, kind of bluesy. And Trey was like, it's good, I like it, but it sounds a little hokey and corny and on the nose with the humor at the end. And I was like, yeah, I get it. So then we decided to not have music at the end. So it's just silence, and then Mike just says his bit. You know, at least it's better than taking the train, you know. So we'll leave it up to the players whether that's funny or not, rather than me trying to impart that it is funny. So it's kind of like explaining a joke after you've said it, and then it's not funny anymore, right? So that's kind of in the nutshell what I do with this process. And you know, it's kind of like with each individual instrument, I mean, you can tell there's a lot of instruments here on the screen. So, I mean, there's at least 71 stems to this. And I use I think I use 4 different libraries, BBC mostly, and then Abbey Road 1, both by Spitfire. And then I use Piano in Blue by Cinesamples. And then I also used the bass from the regular Contact factory selections because I like that bass sound. And then I used the rest of the big band elements from Straight Ahead Samples. And I'll try to link all of those just so that way if you're interested in having these libraries, you'll be able to check them out if that's your speed. If not, then I'm glad you at least tuned in. It's kind of not a really long video. I think it's maybe like 20 to 30 minutes, somewhere around there. I just kind of wanted to do one that's not live, that we could just kind of go over the track and go through it bit by bit and have a look into my process. So hopefully we've sifted through the madness, and you want to try this for a living, or maybe you want to try to compose. I highly encourage it. Please let me know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this where I just simply talk about the game design aspect and how we come up with the cues and how we write the music for the game, what we were coming in at, some things that maybe I'll do a video of, like, here's what I originally did and here's what we ended up with, kind of thing. Just let me know in the comments what content you would like to see from me. But until then, I hope you all have a really good rest of your evening and or daytime, what time zone you're in, and just enjoy your weekend. Take care, everyone.